Okay. Hey, David, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you with
Thanks for
us.
having me.
So, agents are liars. I got a real kick out of that title. And I guess my first question I have to ask you is what do you do for a living?
I am a real estate agent in the Denver metro area in Colorado.
Aren't you kind of backstabbing your own people with this book?
Well, maybe somewhat, but so basically, I had just gotten frustrated with seeing some of the dishonest and unethical behavior that some agents out there, are perpetrating here in the Denver area, and I'm sure all over the country.
Okay. Well, before we get into specifics, have you written anything else, or is this your first book?
This is my first book.
Okay. So it was because of these sort of unethical practices, perhaps, that you decided that you should write this book and let everybody be aware of what's going on?
Correct. Yes, I had a couple of people that I had met with who were taken by some of these lies that I mentioned in the book, and they ended up losing quite a bit of money, and that's kind of spurred me on to write the book.
Okay, this wasn't any of people you work with or work for or anything, right?
No, just other agents in our marketplace.
Okay. Do you own your own company or you just work for someone else?
I do. I have my own brokerage, and it's a little bit different than a lot of the other ones, the big name ones. It's basically under this umbrella company that's well known here, but each person's their own brokerage.
Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit. So what specifically was the issues that you brought up or the issues that you saw that you thought were wrong and that you wanted to write the book to try to correct?
Well, there was one specific person that I met with. It was basically last year, about a year ago or so. And it was this woman. I went over, she wanted me to come and take a look at her house because she was thinking of selling it. So I went over, took a look at the house, told her I thought it could sell for about $1 million dollars after I had seen it, and told her what she should do to get ready. And then she called me up about a week or so later and said that she had sent out an email to her neighborhood and it just mentioned that she was thinking about selling her home. And of course, an agent that lives in her neighborhood excitedly called her up and said, I have a buyer for your home. And this is one of the lies I have in my book, which is the I have a buyer lie. And then this agent went on to tell her that this buyer would be willing to pay probably $1.2 million dollars for her home, so about 200,000 more than I had said. And so anyway, the seller had the agent come over and look at the home and talk to him. And he said he wanted to bring his buyer over to see the home, but she had to sign a listing agreement with him first. So she did that because, she wanted to sell her home to this buyer willing to pay more than what I had said. And it turned out, and I've had this happen many times in the past, there was never a buyer. Basically, that agent was just telling this lie to get her to sign a listing agreement. And at that point, the seller was basically committed to that agent. She could have probably gotten out of the contract with him, but most sellers don't even realize that. And then the home eventually sold for a little less than what I told her because they overpriced it, went through multiple price reductions. So, that's one of the other lies I mentioned in my book is the high price lie that a lot of agents use to get listings is just tell sellers a price that's higher than the home will actually sell for, knowing they'll make them go through multiple price reductions.
What is the normal length of the contract? Is it 6 months?
We can go up to a year, but most agents do 6 month contracts. I personally do 6 month contracts.
So no matter who she might have sold the house to outside, she would have had to pay commission to that agent, right? She was locked in.
Correct. Unless she could have gotten the agent to terminate the agreement with her, which most agents will do if you ask them to, but most sellers don't even know they can do that.
And you said that this happens a lot where agents will
Yeah,
do
I've
that?
in my past experience, I've had it happen to several different people I've talked to. And then the high price lie, even more. I think it's probably the most common lie in real estate that agents use to get listings.
Give me another example. There's got to be more than one to make a whole book.
Yeah. So another one, actually, it was this same story. So the agent told her that he worked much harder than these lower commission agents and did a much better job to sell her home and would get her, possibly even a higher price. And so she, took that at face value and thought that he was telling the truth about that too. Now, I have been doing all of my listings for a lower commission for about a third of what most agents charge for about 5 years now. And I do more than what most agents do. So she basically, besides selling her home, for a little lower than I had said, she also lost probably about $30,000 in paying more commission than she would have had to.
Now, I haven't sold anything in a long time, but it was around 5% when I did it.
Yeah, our average in our market is about 5%, although we do have a lot of agents still charging 6%. I get to see that when I'm representing the buyer. And then after the closing, I see how much the other agent charged. I don't really know that until that point. I've been doing all my listings for 1% listing side commission for about 5 years, and then letting the seller decide how much they want to pay for a buyer agent commission. And a lot of them around here have been choosing to pay about 2.5%, so about 3.5% total versus 5, 6, some agents even charging up to 7%.
Okay, I'm not sure how that works, because if you're only charging 1%, are you getting a piece of the buyer's 2.5% as well?
No, I just get 1%, and the buyer's agent gets whatever the seller decides, which in a lot of cases has been like 2.5%.
So you must have to do like a lot of volume business to make any money.
That's correct. Yeah, it's kind of more that model of doing it for a little lower price, but doing more volume. For about the past 2 years, me and I have one other team member, we've been selling about a home per week.
That's not bad. How many people
Yeah.
do you work with?
I just have one other person on my team.
Okay,
So
and
it's just me and one other person.
you've been doing this for a long time?
Yeah, since 2009.
Okay. Oh, right at the beginning of the housing crisis.
Yeah, everyone was asking me, why are you getting into real estate at that time? But I think it was actually a good time because a lot of people were getting out of it. And there were I worked with a lot of investors, and they did really well. They were purchasing homes at that time for rental properties.
How long has this book been out?
Just since last week.
Oh, okay, fairly recent. So have you received any positive and negative reviews? Did you get any pushback from people in the real estate business?
None yet. I was kind of afraid when I posted it on my personal Facebook page because I have a lot of realtor friends that I might, but actually several of them congratulated me and said that they thought it was a needed book. One of the things we haven't talked about yet is there's several other chapters like how to find a great agent, both a listing agent or a buyer's agent, and some things like that. And they really liked that part of it. The other agents did. And most everyone else has just said how great it is as a resource. And, some of them even told me they wish they had had this before they had ever purchased a home or sold a home.
Well, you bring up an interesting point that I want to elaborate on a little bit. You said how to find a good agent. What do you look for? Or on the other side of it, what is a red flag that this agent might not be the best one?
Several things, but the number one thing, and this is a huge mistake that almost everyone makes when they hire an agent, whether it be a listing agent or a buyer's agent, is they tend to hire the very first agent they talk to or meet with. And a lot of times that will be like their friend or their friend's daughter that just got their license, that kind of thing. So basically, they're not treating it as a business decision, they're treating it as an emotional decision. And that is the number one thing, really. Basically, you need to treat it as a business decision. Interview several agents. I recommend at least 3. I have a whole list of questions in the book that you can ask each agent and then rate them on that. And I think that's really the biggest thing that people make the mistake with.
I think selling one's home is an emotional experience for a lot of people, especially if they've lived there for a long time and their kids grew up there. And it's hard for people sometimes,
It is, and really for buyers too. But the more you can look at it as a business decision and take the emotion out of it, the better off you'll be financially, for sure. There's too many times, especially with sellers, where they'll be all emotional because they do love their house. They've lived there a long time, where, like then there's an inspection and the buyer asks for things to be fixed, and they don't look at it as a business decision. Let's just, spend this $500 and get past this. They look at it as my home's great, there's nothing wrong with it. And it can end up costing them a lot of money in the long run if that buyer then terminates the contract and they go back on the market. So the more people can look at it as a business decision, the better it will be for them.
Well, I have a very similar experience, which I won't get into now because we're just running out of time. But I understand that concept of you may think the pink walls are fine, but somebody else may not like it. So paint the place a neutral color.
Yeah.
Do you run into that a lot where people just have these very specific tastes in the house that might not appeal to everybody?
Yeah, definitely. So that's important too. And I talk about that in the book too, like what sells a home, and just, you need to get it ready and look at it from a buyer's point of view.
One question about that. Is it better to sell a house that has furniture in it, or is it easier to sell a house that's empty?
It's always better to sell a house with furniture in it. However, not too much furniture. If you have too much furniture, you should get rid of some of it. But a lot of buyers have trouble judging how big a room is. Like, for example, will my king size bed fit in this room? So if there is a king size bed in the room, it makes it a lot easier for them.
Well, I must be weird because when I went condo shopping, I always preferred the empty ones so that I could envision how I was going to set it up, without people's furniture in it.
I would say that, the number one best way to sell a home is actually probably staged, like hire a home stager to set up, because they put in minimal furniture and set it up so that it's kind of between empty and full of furniture. And I think that's probably the best way, but if there's a cost involved in that too.
They usually rent the furniture to do that, right?
Correct, yes.
And you would have to pay that separate from real estate fees and things like that, right?
For the most part, yeah. Professional home stagers typically will have all that furniture, and then they charge a fee for that.
What do they charge normally? Because I have no idea.
It really depends on the size of the home and how much the seller would want. Because a lot of times people will just stage part of their home too, just like the primary bedroom and the main, living room, great room, that kind of thing, and won't stage some of the other rooms. So it really just all depends.
We do have to kind of wind this down, but I did want to ask you one question. How do you think the market is in the United States right now, with the economy being a little bit on the inflationary side? And is it going to slow down, or is it still hot, or is it regional?
It's definitely slowed down a lot. I think we're going to, at least here in the Denver area, we really start picking up this time of year. And I am seeing more listings coming on the market and a little bit more buyer interest, but interest rates have gone up so much in the past year that there's a lot of buyers out there that are just scared. They think that they missed it, basically. And so there's problems there. And also then a lot of sellers are struggling to price their home correctly, because we, at least in the Denver area, hit the peak of pricing in April of last year. So coming on a year, and they still want to price their home based on, what it would have sold for then, where it's gone down a little bit by now. Not a ton, but it's gone down. And you need to price competitively if you're going to be successful and get the most out of your home.
Well, David, I think on that, we're going to have to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on the show. The book is called Agents Are Liars. My guest is David Lampe. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do. It's agentsareliars.com.
Great. Okay. Super website. I'm curious to see, as this book gets out there, how many people you get that praise the book and also criticize the book. Because
I think there could definitely be some in the industry who might want to, post a negative review.
Yeah, you might get some pushback from fellow real estate agents. But
exactly.
Hopefully not too nasty of pushback,
Yeah, hopefully not.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you, and best of luck with the book.
Thank you very much.